Let's go back to 1990, Bellevue, Washington. It was a pretty ritzy, upscale city, a popular spot for nightlife and really considered a safe place to live. But that summer, everything changed. The community was absolutely rocked by a series of brutal crimes that would push investigators to their breaking point. This is the story of how a single pine cone, a stolen ring, and a brand new, revolutionary science brought a truly vicious killer to justice.
And that idea right there, that was the absolute core of this entire investigation. And it was championed by the medical examiner, Dr. Donald Ray. He knew that a victim's body is just a sea of evidence. Every fiber, every wound, it's all a piece of a much larger puzzle. And it's up to forensic science to put all those pieces together and hopefully unmask the killer.
So our story really kicks off on June 23, 1990. An employee at a popular steakhouse, a place called the Black Angus, is just taking out the trash like they do every night. But this time, they make an absolutely horrifying discovery, one that's about to send a shockwave through the entire city of Bellevue.
Lying there, right next to a dumpster, is the body of a young woman. We later learn her name was Marianne Pryks, but the scene, it was just bizarre. The killer had deliberately posed her body, placing a pine cone between her hands and a coffee lid over one of her eyes. This wasn't just a murder, it felt like a performance. The killer wasn't trying to hide his crime at all. He was showing it off, sending this really chilling message that he was the one in control.
Well, as the investigation into Marianne's murder starts to stall, the city's fear just skyrockets. Because in the weeks that follow, 2 more women are found brutally murdered, this time in their own homes. And a terrifying pattern, it starts to become very, very clear.
I mean, just look at this timeline. The killer was moving terrifyingly fast. In just 9 weeks, 3 women were dead. The city of Bellevue was gripped by fear, and the police, they were in a desperate race against a predator they couldn't even identify. The pressure was just immense. Now, because these murders actually happened in different jurisdictions, it was the county medical examiner, Dr. Ray, who first saw the terrifying connection. He recognized a clear signature across all 3 victims, the exact same cause of death, that degrading posing of the bodies, and horrific injuries inflicted after they were already dead. This was not a series of random attacks. This was the work of one single sadistic serial killer.
So, even though they now know they have a serial killer on the loose, the investigation is going absolutely nowhere. Detectives are interviewing the victims' boyfriends, chasing down every possible lead, but their bag of tools, as they called it, was emptying out fast, and they were getting seriously frustrated.
You can just feel the desperation in that statement. I mean, these detectives are working 7 days a week, just haunted by the knowledge that as long as this guy's free, he will almost certainly take another life. They were feeling responsible for whatever might happen next.
And then, about 2 weeks after the 3rd murder, the case gets a break, and it's from the most unexpected place imaginable, a 911 call. A terrified woman is reporting a prowler, someone trying to break into her apartment. It's a call that's about to change everything. Okay, so follow this, because a single 911 call set off this incredible chain reaction. The police respond to the prowler call, they find a guy named George Russell sitting in his car, and they arrest him on some unrelated warrants. But during that arrest, they find a gun. And when they trace that gun's serial number, they get the hit they have been desperate for. It was stolen from a neighbor of the 3rd victim, Randy Levine. And just like that, from a routine prowler call, detectives have their first real suspect, George Russell, a guy who is known in the local bar scene that all 3 victims also frequented, is now the focus of the entire investigation.
But, look, having a suspect and proving he's a triple murderer are 2 very, very different things. So now, investigators had to do the painstaking work of linking George Russell, piece by piece, to all 3 of those crime scenes.
And the circumstantial evidence, it just started to pile up. They found out Russell borrowed a truck the night Marianne was killed, and he returned it with this sickening smell and red stains inside. Tiny little fibers from that truck were a microscopic match to fibers found on Marianne's body. And then, they found the critical link to the 3rd murder, an amethyst ring. It was stolen from Randy Levine, and what did Russell do? He gifted it to another woman as an apology. He had literally placed a trophy from his victim into the hands of a potential witness.
So, with that fiber match connecting Marianne Pryks to the truck that Russell was driving, the detectives felt this huge surge of confidence. The pieces were finally falling into place. They were sure they had their man. But, as you know, being sure isn't enough to keep a killer behind bars.
And this is where the clock really starts ticking. The case against Russell was strong, but it was all circumstantial. It wasn't quite enough to charge him with murder, and the legal time limit to hold him on those other warrants, well, it was about to expire.
The stakes could not have been higher. The investigators are absolutely convinced they have a serial killer in custody, a man who they know will not only disappear, but will kill again if he's let go. And they have just 24 hours to find the definitive proof they need to stop him. Now you have to remember, the year 1990 is so critical here. Today, DNA analysis is fast, it's routine, but back then, it was a brand new, really slow-moving science. And the key biological evidence for Marianne Preakey's body, it was sitting in a massive backlog at the FBI lab. A result could take months, but these investigators only had hours. So, as the clock is ticking down, with just hours left before Russell walks free, the phone rings. One investigator actually called it a miracle, an answered prayer. It's the FBI. The results are in. At the time, DNA was this revolutionary tool. It's the unique genetic code that's inside every single person, a biological fingerprint that can link a suspect to a crime with a level of certainty that was just unimaginable before. This call was the game changer they were all praying for.
And the result was the scientific proof they needed. The DNA from semen found on the very first victim, Marianne Preake, was a perfect match for George Russell. This moved the case from circumstantial to absolutely certain. He wasn't going anywhere.
So, at trial, the prosecution's case was airtight. They presented that last-minute DNA match, they had the stolen ring linking Russell to Randy Levine, and they had Dr. Ray's expert testimony on the killer's unique signature. The jury found him guilty on all 3 counts of murder. George Russell was sentenced to 2 life sentences without any chance of parole, ensuring that he would never have the freedom to harm another person again. A meticulous investigation, powered by forensic science, had finally brought a predator to justice.
But it really leaves you with a chilling thought, doesn't it? This case was solved by the absolute slimmest of margins, a few fibers, a stolen ring, and a phone call that came with just hours to spare. It really makes you wonder, without that perfect intersection of science and just plain luck, how many more victims would there have been?